Sure. Yeah, I can like glance it.
Hello there. My name is Nate Grebe, and this is Eric Thyberg. We are on the operations team here at VictorOps, and we are here to do the Tuesdays at 2 demo. We're just going to dive right in to the screen share here, so stand by. All right. Jumping back to the timeline, I'm going to let Eric start off and go over the people pane here on the left.
Here we go. All right. It is worth mentioning right now that this is our web UI. We demo the product on the web UI because it's a little bit easier to do, but it's also worth noting that this experience is the same in both the Android and iOS clients that we have available. Everything except for the administrative features are available on those platforms. Getting started here, over on the left side, we have what we call the people pane. These are going to be all the members of your organization in the list. The top 3 people here all have an oak leaf next to their name, and that is used to denote that they are currently on call, and the team that they're currently on call for is listed in orange. So Jason's on call for 2 teams, Dan's on call for 1 of them, and Nate's on call for 4 because he's a superstar. As we get down below these 3 people here, there's some individuals with green dots next to their name, and that is to show that they are currently paying attention, they're logged into the app, and they're checking in on what's going on. That green dot will decay over time. It'll kind of become this translucent color a little bit, and then after about 3 or 4 hours, it should be this pretty translucent green. We think that's especially important because we want this to be a collaborative platform. As you well know, there are oftentimes incidents or issues that come in that you may not be the expert on. So being able to pull back on a list here and see who's checking in or who might already be aware of what's going on and the expertise that they might have in that situation, we think that can be especially useful. If you click on anybody's name, you can get their contact information. You can also hold sidebar conversation here that will not be recorded in the timeline. You can also reach out to somebody with an app mention. Or you can, oh, I got his name wrong here, at John Cavell. Or you can double app mention and write to a whole team, and they'll receive a push notification on their device. They'll then be pulled into the firefight and help you work the issue to ground. As we go back up to these top 3 people that are currently on call, you can click on their name. There's also buttons for these people that are on call that say take on call. This is kind of like a scheduled override, but we use this much more on the fly. Our boss, Tom, coaches his kids hockey and baseball games and stuff like that. He'll oftentimes reach out to Nate and I the same way that I reached out to John here and say, hey, can you guys take on call for a couple hours? I'm going to be away from my phone. All we have to do is go in here, click take on call, and we effectively pass the pager at that point, and we assume all duties and responsibilities of being on call at that time. And then once Tom is available again, he goes back in and takes on call back, and everything is just as it was earlier in the day. At this point, I'll go ahead and have Nate hop into our main timeline here.
So as you see, all incidents, pages, if there's a reroute, all chats and alerts all show up in this main timeline here. If you think it looks like Twitter, it's because we copied them very specifically to get the social media aspect of Twitter inside the application so you can get a good overall view of what's going on with your infrastructure. Clicking in on any of these alerts, you will get the full payload. Also, a new feature that we have currently testing in beta is alert annotation. As you see, you can append links, notes, runbooks, and images, so in this case a graph, and all of these are automatically annotated to the alert based on the information provided within the alert. So you can run a wildcard match on any of the fields you see in the full payload here, and using that we can append different amounts of information. The idea behind that was you already know what you're going to do when you get that page at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're going to wake up, you're going to check a graph, search your wiki for a runbook, and having to do that manually by taking out your laptop that in the middle of the night can be a real pain. So automatically adding that information directly into the alert so that you can get it from your mobile telephone will help save you some time when you're blurry-eyed at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm now going to use our Hubot integration. Qbot is a chat robot that looks for certain things within your chat client. So we have an adapter for VictorOps. And then it has a library of scripts that it can run in the background. So I'm going to hit our REST endpoint using a script that we have through Qbot to create an alert so we can walk through the life cycle of an incident when it arrives into VictorOps. As you see, it shows up in the main timeline here. It says who is paging. It's paging me for incident 5060. And on the right side, it also queues up here under the triggered incident pane. The two options you have are to acknowledge or reroute. Acknowledging the incident will say, hey, I'm taking responsibility for this, and I'll make sure it gets done. It shows up here so that everyone in your organization can see that I am working on it. If I was to look into the alert and realize it's maybe not something I'm able to take care of on my own, I can reroute it to a different team. So if I think this is better suited for the database team, which I'm also on call for, I can reroute it out that way, and it will start paging both me and Jason. One nice thing is if you click in on this incident, you will be presented with the timeline specific to just this entity. So as you see, it opened here, was acknowledged, and then rerouted. And none of the other information that goes into the main timeline is going to show up here. So you're able to kind of have a separate chat room specific to just this incident. You can still mention within here. So if I was to send one to myself, it's going to automatically append the incident number so that you know what you're being called in to help with. You will get a push notification to your phone that will include the incident number, and so you can quickly get in and help out. I'm going to acknowledge this now so it does not continue to page me, but one other thing I wanted to show you before we move on are these filters up top, so you can get it down to just incidents for you and your team. I'm currently on every team, so it's not really showing you too much of a difference, but one other thing is maintenance mode. Entering maintenance mode essentially stops all paging. The reason for this is if you know you're going to have a scheduled maintenance or some sort of planned downtime that's going to cause a series of alerts to come flooding into your system, you can keep it quiet by stopping all paging during that time. All the information is still going to flow into the timeline, so no alerts will be missed, but all pages will be stopped. And when you exit maintenance mode, once you're done, any outstanding incidents will resume paging. Moving on to the administrative side of things, this is only available in the UI. Everything past that main timeline is now only in the web UI, but every bit of functionality we just showed you is available in the mobile app. I'm going to pass it back over to Eric here, who will touch on the different scheduling options in VictorOps.
Cool. So we have the ability to handle a multitude of different scheduling types that you and your organization may utilize. Anything from a basic 24/7, for a week sort of setup, or something as complicated as a follow the sun covering 4 different countries, as you can see here. If we drill into the schedule here, we can see the escalation policy. This is going to be how you're paged for that given team. You can add or subtract as many steps as you want here. This is set to immediately notify the on-call user in the follow the sun schedule. If it's still inactive after 15 minutes, you can notify a specific user. Like I said, this is as customizable as you want it to be, adding steps or adding different people or teams that you want to maneuver this issue to if need be. Kind of piggybacking off that, we'll go into the users pane here. This is where you're going to set up your personal paging policy. Let me see what we have here. As this is a demo account, not all of them have live info, but this is going to be the basic contact card for a user, showing their devices, their email address. We obviously suggest that you keep this stuff up to date so you are paged as need be. And then Todd's personal paging policy is every 15 minutes until we've reached you, send a push notification to his devices. Same thing as the escalation policy. You can add or subtract as many steps as you need to. Here, anything from firing off all 4 of the modes of communication at once to phasing them out every 5 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. It's also worth noting at this time that we do not charge for any of those, and those are email, phone calls, SMS, and push notifications. So if you have a team that's over in Europe or something like that, we can handle that and contact them, no problem whatsoever.
One more thing I wanted to touch on before we move on to the integrations tab is the ability to do a scheduled override. At the bottom here, Eric mentioned this earlier, that we have one option in the main timeline to do the on-the-fly take-on call. And he referenced the scheduled override as well, and that can be found here at the bottom of the schedule page. And this is for when you know you're going to be out of town, whether it's a vacation or dentist appointment or something like that. You can go in here and select the time that you're going to be out, and then go in and add a user to cover for you. So here I'm going to be covering for Jason over the holidays. If we switch to a month view and go down to the database team, we'll see right here the block of time that I am taking for Jason, and it denotes that in that little bubble there. Moving on to integrations. We have a number of integrations, as you see here. The majority of them fall under this single REST endpoint. We do have some more custom integrations that have their own endpoint, but essentially it's all webhooks hitting a REST endpoint of some sort on our end. Digging into the generic REST endpoint here, as you'll see, it contains an API key specific to your organization and a routing key that can be any string of choice defined here at the bottom of the page. So database will go to the database team, and DevOps would go to the DevOps team. Similarly to the REST endpoint, we have an email endpoint, just in case you're unable to send a webhook out of your alerting system. An email address is just as easy, just comes with the caveat of there's less information you can pass. You really only have the options of the subject and the body. Again, you have a API key specific to your organization, and then a routing key defined at the bottom of the page. And what we do with the email endpoint is we parse the subject line of that email. We look for terms like critical, acknowledge, resolved, and then take action on that past that point. If we're unable to parse the subject line that you send our way, you can default all of those messages to be either an info message, which will not page, or a critical alert, which will page. It should be noted that if you have any questions about schedules, personal paging policies, or integrations, or would like help setting any of that up, that is what the support team is here for. So don't hesitate to reach out to support@VictorOps.com, and we will get paged and help you out. The last thing I want to touch on before we end the demo is our reports. As you see, we have a number of just high-level reports, incident metrics, how many criticals, warnings, recoveries you have, organization, mean time to acknowledgement, mean time to resolution, incident trends, and incident frequency. This is one of our newer reports and definitely one of our most populars. This breaks down all of your different entities and reports how many alerts each of them have received over specified periods of time. This is great for if you have a weekly on-call handoff and you want to discuss which boxes were being the noisiest and maybe need to keep an extra eye on them. You can bring up this report and kind of take a look. Our most commonly used report is undoubtedly our postmortem report. As you see, you can go in here, give it a title, and then you select the range of your outage or whatever issue you want to document in a postmortem. So I'll do it for today. And it's going to bring up every single thing that happened in the timeline over this period. You can give it a little write-up about what you did, what happened, and what you did to solve it. And then you can go in and remove unnecessary bits of information and add comments to the things that are important. At the end, you can, once you expand or condense the report to just the critical bits of information, you can save it. It'll be saved within VictorOps, and you'll also be able to print it out or save it to a PDF and ship it off as a part of an SLA or anything else you may want to use it for. And that about sums up the VictorOps platform. I'm going to leave the screen share now.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for taking a look. If you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to reach out to support support@VictorOps.com, and we are here to help.
Yeah, we actually have a cool promotion going on right now. We are giving away an Xbox One, and who doesn't want an Xbox One in their office? If you add a paid user by the end of the year, we will give you equal amount of how would you call it? Like tickets, raffle tickets into the raffle for the Xbox One itself. So yeah, take a look at that. Xbox One's a good time, and everybody will love you at your office if you get one.
All right. Thank you very much for watching. A special shout out to Tara on the other side of the office. She's our biggest fan. Okay, goodbye.